Hamid Karzai, thanks for joining me on UpFront. In August, US President Donald Trump announced his plan to escalate the US involvement in Afghanistan, America's longest ever war, and to send more US troops to fight the Taliban. You tweeted that you strongly oppose this new US strategy, that it's, quote, against the national interest of Afghanistan. How is it against the national interest of your country to have your allies sending you more troops to fight the #1 threat to peace in your country, the Taliban?
The Afghan people are sick and tired of war, in whatever name that may be. When we welcomed the United States in Afghanistan in 2001, the Afghan people, for the first time, accepted and supported and welcomed a foreign military power in the hope that finally we'll have peace and progress and stability. And for a number of years, that was true. But when attacks increased, violence increased, terrorism increased, and no clear picture was offered in fighting it, rather it was the same old thing of Afghans continuing to suffer, we are by now very tired of the daily killing of the Afghan people.
But the US government would say that they're sending more troops now for the same reason that they sent troops in the first place in 2001, to defeat, to fight, to beat the Taliban. The Taliban are the cause of the violence in Afghanistan, they would say, not US troops.
They are not anymore the only cause of violence in Afghanistan. The war itself is breeding violence in Afghanistan.
Hamid Karzai, the last time I interviewed you on this show in 2015, you said, and I quote, "I wish the Afghan Taliban, who are truly from this country, would come back to their own country and would help rebuild Afghanistan and bring peace." Turns out the Taliban has returned. Today, that group controls or contests more than 40% of the country, the most amount of territory since it was driven from power by the US in 2001. The Taliban's now carried out more than 80 attacks against innocent Afghan civilians just this year alone. I'm guessing this isn't the kind of Taliban return you were hoping for.
Yes, exactly. I want the Taliban who belong to Afghanistan, who are Afghans, to come back to Afghanistan and to sit down with their own people and bring peace to Afghanistan, and through that bring the stability to our life that we need. If 40% of the country are, in the past 3 years, have fallen in the hands of the Taliban, that speaks for the failure of the US strategy in Afghanistan. The US failed in Afghanistan because they did not target the sanctuaries. They did not go to the sanctuaries, to the sources of training and nursing and financing terrorism. They rather went on attacking Afghan villages, Afghan homes, Afghan children. They created prisons in Afghanistan. They violated Afghan sovereignty in every imaginable way. The way they behaved in Afghanistan, the heavy-handed military behavior in Afghanistan, caused the Afghan people's alienation, and that alienation is bringing about the trouble that we have.
You mentioned US heavy-handedness and the killing of civilians by the US and the continuation of war. But what about your own leadership? You were president of Afghanistan for a decade. The ICC prosecutor, the International Criminal Court prosecutor, has just announced she's requesting an investigation into war crimes and crimes against humanity committed in Afghanistan going back to 2003. And in the ICC's 2016 report, they said they had a reasonable basis to believe war crimes of torture and related ill treatment by Afghan government forces did take place. Let's be clear, that was on your watch as president of Afghanistan.
Yes, she is right. She is right to launch such an investigation. That's exactly why things have gone wrong in Afghanistan, violation of the lives of the Afghan people. That's exactly why I began to have differences with the United States and with their heavy-handed approach.
Do you agree that there were human rights violations by Afghan security forces while you were president? Were you aware of them at the time?
Definitely there were violations by the Afghan security forces, by the US, and by others. And that is exactly the reason that I'm asking for peace in Afghanistan.
Okay, but do you take responsibility for those violations
sign the bilateral
as head of
security agreement
state
with the US?
Do you take responsibility as head of state at that time for those violations?
Surely, very much. I've spoken about this before. I have issued instructions on this before. I've issued instructions to our intelligence department, to our defense department, to our internal Minister of Interior, repeatedly in cabinet meetings, through written instructions. How could we be so much in trouble if there were no violations? And that's exactly the pain of the Afghan people for the past 30 years. Violations at the hands of our own governments and violations perpetrated by foreigners. It is this that must end. Definitely. We have to go to those routes in order to have peace in Afghanistan.
So if the ICC prosecutor comes after you personally, you'll cooperate with her? You'll be willing to be interviewed, give over evidence, etc.?
Like hell, of course. Absolutely. Welcome. And I have been asking for this so that they come to Afghanistan and investigate as to what has happened in this country.
Hamid Karzai, can I just clarify for the sake of our audience at home, this is obviously a big legal and political issue. When you say you welcome the ICC investigation, like hell, you'll cooperate with them, you'll definitely cooperate with them. Are you saying you admit to guilt in relation to war crimes that took place on your watch? You're saying they did happen? Or are you saying, yes, let's have an investigation, but you're not sure what happened?
No, I'm admitting morality and an upper hand and on high ground on morality in this issue. Okay. I want those who have done it to be taken into account.
Are you one of those who did it as the Commander-in-Chief of the Afghan Armed Forces, former at the time?
No. I'm one of those who stood against it.
Okay.
Firmly and clearly and in writing. And that is the issue of difference between me and the United States on this issue. That is where things went wrong between us.
Many human rights groups say they told you at the time torture was going on, detention was going on, abuse was going on, and your government did nothing. That's what a lot of human rights groups would say.
No, they're wrong. They didn't tell me, I told them.
Okay.
I told the Western human rights bodies as to what was going on in Afghanistan.
Okay.
They didn't tell me. They were hiding it. The Western press was hiding it. I told them. I raised it.
I mean, there are Human Rights Watch reports from that time where they documented in 2010, 2011 what was going on. They would heavily dispute your claim on this and point to their reports.
Yes, exactly. These reports were there. These reports were based on my statements, on my struggle against violation in Afghanistan by the U.S. forces and their allies in here. Sure.
Okay. Just turning to Pakistan, in August, US President Trump called out Pakistan for providing safe havens for terrorist organizations, including the Taliban. Your current president, Ashraf Ghani, agrees. He's called Pakistan the biggest obstacle to peace. Last time you were on this show, you claimed that Pakistani militia forces were behind terrorist attacks, quote unquote, inside of Afghanistan. Just to be clear, you disagree with Trump and Ghani on more US troops, but you agree with Trump and Ghani on getting tougher with Pakistan?
Yes, I do agree that we must engage more effectively with Pakistan. But President Trump's recent tough stand against Pakistan is not related to extremism or terrorism or violence in Afghanistan. Here, Afghanistan is used as a pretext to put pressure on Pakistan because of the larger issues that are not related to Afghanistan immediately. It is for this reason that, again, I oppose this, because it uses Afghanistan in a bigger game for someone else's interest. With Pakistan, we have our differences, we have our issues. Yes, a lot of violence has come to Afghanistan from Pakistan, but that is an issue that we must address directly with Pakistan, and the US and others must help that issue, not to use us as a pretext for a larger confrontation in this region.
Hamid Karzai, you told me on this show in 2015 that ISIL in Afghanistan has no ground here at all. There is no element, there is no medium for them to grow or rise or strengthen. And yet just this year, ISIL has carried out more than 20 attacks inside of Afghanistan. Afghan officials say there are more than 1,500 ISIL fighters on the ground in your country. Do you think you spoke too soon?
No. What I meant there was that they are not Afghans, that they are foreign created, foreign nurtured for a foreign purpose, that they are not indigenous to us.
But they clearly have support now inside of Afghanistan.
They don't have any support inside Afghanistan. They're clearly funded by abroad, and for a purpose related to abroad.
You mentioned abroad. You've accused the United States of being behind
killing
ISIL.
Afghan people.
You have said, quote, I do not differentiate at all between Daesh and America. You've said ISIL is, quote, a US tool and that unmarked military helicopters are supplying ISIL in Afghanistan. Do you have even a shred of evidence for what are pretty controversial and inflammatory claims?
The evidence is, sir, in the fact that they are there, in spite of the US presence in Afghanistan to fight extremism. ISIS emerged under their watch, when Afghanistan is completely under their air surveillance.
But that's evidence of US failure in prosecuting the war on terror.
Without
that's not
detection.
Evidence of US complicity. You're claiming complicity. You're saying US and ISIS are working together, which is a big claim.
We have more than that. Look, we have suffered so much in this game that never a moral being will be able to deny that extremism is a tool in the hands of the United States. They did it when we were fighting the Soviets, the same tool. They're using it in a bigger way now today.
Just to be clear, are you claiming that President Donald Trump is working with ISIS in Afghanistan?
Well, these are inflammatory statements that you're trying to make me make. I'm not going to make those statements.
You said I consider
But I'm telling
Daesh
you as
their
an
tool.
Afghan
I do not differentiate between Daesh and America. They get unmarked military helicopters.
Yes.
Those are your claims, not mine. They're your inflammatory claims.
Yes, I am saying that, but I'm not going to link President Trump to this. I mean, this is linking individuals. I'm talking of a system. Therefore, for me to link an individual is not the right thing.
Okay, let me rephrase the question then. Is the Trump administration, the US government, working with ISIS in Afghanistan?
In my view, under the full presence, surveillance, military, political, intelligence, Daesh has emerged. And for 2 years, the Afghan people came, cried aloud of their suffering, of violations. Nothing was done. And then they drop a bomb, the biggest non-nuclear bomb, on our people in the name of fighting Daesh. And the next day, Daesh takes the next district in Afghanistan. That proves to us that there is a hand in it, and that hand can be no one else but them in Afghanistan. If that is not the case, I will go back to my original statement to you. Let them come back to the Afghan people and say that they have failed. Then we will sit down with them and redraw a map of cooperation.
With the benefit of hindsight, Hamid Karzai, looking back 16 years on from 9/11 and the original intervention, do you wish the US had never intervened militarily in Afghanistan after 9/11, that they'd never gone to war with the Taliban to topple Mullah Omar's government? Do you wish Afghans maybe had tried to do it on their own without US, without foreign involvement or support?
On this question of us having been able to do it on our own, of course. A million times I wish they had not come. I wish we had not been naive enough to invite them then at that time, thinking that they were going to bring good to us. We as a people are very grateful to the help that has been given to us, which we consider help. Where our hospitals are built, where our schools are built, where our roads are built, where life has improved, we're very grateful to the American people. But you cannot tell me that I've given you money, so I have the right to bomb your house. And if I complain, don't bomb my house, you say, well, that's not gratefulness. We differentiate. Where we are helped, we are grateful. Where we are bombed, imprisoned, hurt, we are not grateful. We stand against it.
Hamid Karzai, thanks for joining me on UpFront.
Thank you. Good to talk to you.